What looks wrong now is, of course, this black valance, or whatever you want to call it, that goes right across the front. So to cover that, I've got to remove the dash, and that's not quite so easy. The dash is held on mainly by 3 large nuts, one in each corner and one in the middle here. They're all easily got at. There are a couple more bolts, both of which are attached to the steering column. All 4 are not difficult to get at, but there's still another connection which is there between the 2 trafficator signs there, just above, and it's a different sort. It's 2 smaller bolts which go through a plate, and apparently to get at it I had to remove the rev counter, and I'm supposed to be able to get through from there. It's not that easy. Well, this is what it looks like behind the dashboard. Now it's been removed. Massive cables, but they're all labelled, so it's not a problem. The difficult part, or the nuisance part, was having to remove the choke cable from the actual carburettor and pull it right through, and worse still was the temperature sensor, which is a massively long coil which eventually managed to pull it through. However, all I have to do now is undo all the bolts which hold on this top valance. Well, everything's been removed. I did read somewhere that you had to take the windscreen out to do the dash pad on the top. It actually came out quite easily, so hopefully I'll be able to get it back easily. These are the 3 parts that it's broken down into. The hardboard at the top there, it's rather crudely made. Instead of nice curves, it's a series of flats, so I'm assuming that it was an amateur job that was done. However, I should be able to clean the edges up. It all looks fairly straightforward at the moment, but we'll see how it goes. I've removed the foam that was on the top. I'm not sure that it's original actually. Can't find any information about a foam layer. Anyway, I've removed it. Now at the back of the platform there's a hollow, a fold in the metal, probably to strengthen it, and that was filled with an extra layer of foam. Unfortunately, I think what's probably happened is that the condensation on the windows has run down and soaked in and held the water, and now there's quite a lot of rust, so I've got to deal with that, unfortunately. The old foam has left a lot of adhesive behind, but it seems to be coming off quite easily. There's the bad bit of rust. Well, the two parts are in. I've had several goes at doing it. I padded the back piece and it looked all wrong, so I had to throw it all away and start again. And this front section, which bolts on, the bolts didn't line up with the holes properly, and so they became twisted, so I had to file the holes, make a better shape, because the piping showed up all bent, crooked. Anyway, it's just the dashboard now. This is the cowl that comes off the dashboard. As you can see, it's a very awkward shape, and I'm doing my best to cover it with the same vinyl as the seats and all the rest. So what I've done is I've made a paper template for the inside, which is ends up as a funny shape, and then drawn round that, and then added another couple of inches. I've glued it on with spray-on adhesive on the inside, and I've left it for 3 days to harden, because it needs to be really set, because I've got to turn it over. This has got to be turned over like so. And as you can see, you get all these bumps and things. But with the aid of a hot air gun and a lot of pulling, it's possible to get round the corner there and to pull it tight. Anyway, switch the gun on and I'll see if I can show. It's not easy to film at the same time. I wasn't sure how much flexibility there is in this vinyl, because it's quite thick. Right, it's gone round there quite nicely. And I'll just hold it there till it cools off a bit. It's not very hot. Okay, that's not too bad. A little bit more stretching there, I think. So what I'm going to do now, I've got to get this obviously to the right length. But I've got these screw holes in here, and I'm going to turn this over and tuck it inside So I've got to cut out little pieces to allow for the screws to go through before it'll tuck round. So I'll do that next. Right, it's beginning to slip a bit here, so I've got to pull it tight again. Trouble is, the gun is a bit too hot. It'd probably be a lot better with a hairdryer. Okay, I think that'll do for that stage. This will pull down naturally on the straight, that's not a problem. So now I'm going to try and get a little bit of adhesive on here, as far up as it'll go, before I trim it. Okay, well that's it finished. Not too difficult a job. The weak part is where you have to join up the ends. It's not easy. However, it's hidden behind the steering column, so I shan't worry too much. This is the underside. You can see where I've tucked it in. Doesn't matter about the crease there. And the screws are all easily fitted. This is the glove box lid, and I'm going to wrap it in vinyl. Now, it had a crackle finish, so I've had to sand it smooth, and it's in two parts, so it shouldn't be too difficult to do for a first one. And I'm going to use this walnut vinyl applied with a heat gun, and I'll see how it goes. The thing about vinyl wrapping is if you don't like it, you can rip it off. Right, well there's the first attempt. Well, actually the second attempt, because when I put the first piece on, which was the top, I soon realised that even the tiniest piece of grit underneath would show through. So when I lifted it off, I found that it had removed flakes of paint. So I had to go over the whole thing with the sticky side of the spare bit of tape, trying to clean off any loose paint flakes, old paint. Anyway, that's it. I've done the hinge as well along the bottom, although I don't know whether it'll show or not. Question is, can I do all this, the whole width, with one piece? It's a nightmare of a job. Perhaps I'm being a bit too ambitious. It's certainly a very complex piece to cover. And it stretches nicely with the warm air. Unfortunately, there are times when you want it to shrink. Well, I did a complete job, but as you can see, I wasn't happy with it. I could have got away with it, I think. Sitting in the car, you probably wouldn't have noticed, but there were faults, And as always, I knew they were there. If I can just show there, you can see those little bumps. They are flakes of paint that have come off where I've accidentally touched the surface before I've laid it down. What I'm going to do while I wait for a new order of material to come through, the remains I've got from this lot, I'm going to practice on this area, because this is where the problem occurs. It's where it's very tight on the bends there, and worse still was there. Great difficulty with that one. So I'll have a practice with the bits, and then afterwards I shall sand it all down again. Here's my practice piece. This end I'm reasonably satisfied with. I think I've got it right. The far side around here, that's not quite so good, but it's well underneath. But this is where the trouble is. This end is hopeless. Although I thought I've got it right in tight, if I cut it with a knife at the moment, you can see there's a great big bubble. And while it was a tight fit, when I did it, when it's cooled off, it's now lifted away. So somehow I've got to get over that. And this corner is an awful job to do. So I'm going to have another go at that one. And similarly, that corner, they're so sharp and pointed. Still is coming. Right, next practice, I think I'll only do this little piece, which is giving me trouble. The rest of it I think I can manage okay. So I'll have to rip it off, get another piece, have another go. Well, I'm going to cover the whole of the dash with two pieces. Impossible to do it with one. And by starting at this end, it's easier to get to this bottom curve here where the bubble was, and by coming in from this end I managed to get rid of the bubble. Now at the moment you can see all sorts of creases, especially this big one here, but they'll all disappear because this piece here I'm going to replace at the end, as will be obvious. But at the moment it's not too bad. Quite happy with that. Well, the two pieces are on. I've got a lot of bubbles to get rid of. And of course I've got to cut out all the holes for the switches and things. So where the two pieces joined, I've cut this whole section out so the join no longer shows, and I will cut a piece which overlaps all of these edges, but it won't show because this will go on the top and hide them all. There'll be a nice clean piece inside with no bits, no joins. The only place where a join will show is just there. There is a small line. Well, that's it. It's not too bad. It's the best I can do anyway. Glove box is not a very good fit. Just a question now of putting things back in their place and connecting up the wiring. Well, that's the interior finished. Thanks for watching.